Hello, everyone. We are ready to get started. I want to thank all of you for joining today. My name is Jennifer Morris, and I'm the Director of Customer Success here at MadCap Software. And I am so thrilled to welcome two wonderful guest presenters today, Mads Sørensen and Kai Weber, lead technical writers at SimCorp, which is a leading provider of investment management software solutions for some of the world's most largest financial organizations. So together with their teams, Mads and Kai rely on MadCap Flare to keep their documentation and their processes running smoothly, since SimCorp has recently moved to an agile development methodology. So today's session is all about optimizing projects to support their documentation production setup that combines MadCap Flare features along with some automation scripts to produce a help output of nearly, wait for it, 500,000 topics, okay, and over 180 unique PDFs. So this team is generating a lot of content. So we're going to touch on all of the fun things today, such as global project linking. We're going to talk about TOCs and TOCs. We're going to see how SimCorp gathers source content into a single project that supports multilingual outputs as well. And we're also going to see some samples of MadCap Flare extensions, tools, and scripts that support their build automation process. So a lot to cover today. And as always, I just want to cover two quick items of business before we jump in. Of course, this will be recorded, and we're going to email a link to everybody when it's done. So if you have to leave early, no problem. We'll get that link to you hopefully the next day or so. We also want to encourage you, if there are any questions that come up during the presentation, to use the question panel in the GoToWebinar console that you have access to. We're going to do our best to get to as many questions as we can at the end. Whatever we don't get to live, we'll follow up with a question and answer document. So please keep those questions coming as they pop into your head. So again, I want to welcome you, Mads and Kai. Thank you so much for joining us today. And since I know you have a lot to cover, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Kai Weber. We're coming to you live from Europe tonight, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you may be. If you're joining us from Europe, the good thing is that you have your working day behind you. And if you're joining us from the Americas, the good thing is that you get to watch this during your office hours. We're going to take you through our documentation setup a little bit. And the first question is, of course, why do we even have 450K topics? How come we have almost 500,000 topics in our setup? The main reason is that we have context-based topics in our output, and our products and services based on a product called SimCorp Dimension has 6,500 windows and more than 50,000 fields in it. And for this reason, we use these 50,000 fields in a variety of contexts. So for example, they might be field help in different windows, and they might also be help for database fields when you extract directly from the database from an API call, for example. So there are 500,000 topic files in our output, but there are not 500,000 unique entries, but there's a whole lot of context reuse. And yes, we have close to 200 PDF manuals because it's actually quite a wide variety of ranges that we cover for the financial industry. So for example, an asset manager buys an equity and then they perform performance calculations or risk, and then there's the accounting. And of course, you have a whole lot of different windows in those, but something like the security ID field, that's going to appear in just about every single of these windows. So it's a lot of content. However, most of it is actually fairly plain vanilla. The slide you see now talks a little bit about our information model, which is how we're going to start. To make this work, to make all the context reuse work, and to make sure that we only have a single point of truth for every content, we use a homegrown data-inspired model. We call it data without the boring parts. Not to disparage data, but we've done that way before lightweight data came along. And so we've sort of stripped data down to its basics that we needed. We have, of course, the holy triad of topic types, the task, the concept, and the reference topics. And we also have glue topics to make user manuals in PDF a little more readable. Blue topics are generic topics, which just about give readers orientation to navigate the user manuals when they read them in PDF. We use task orientation as a documentation design strategy. Again, a fairly standard method, because we realized that the user's primary job is never to read the documentation, but to actually get on with their tasks. And we apply topic-based authoring in self-contained topics. And we made all these decisions, all these design decisions, before we even chose MadCap Flare. So we knew, coming out of a Word-based paradigm where we had, yes, about 150 user manuals in Word, which turned out to be unmaintainable with our tech writer team back then, that we needed to make the change, come up with something more robust in an information model. And that's when we decided on topic-based authoring with the data-inspired model and with task orientation. And only then did we decide on MadCap Flare, even though, even back then, we had almost the size of the topics that we have today. But we trusted MadCap Flare for two reasons, because we saw it supported topic-based authoring very well, and we actually opted for the open file strategy that underlies MadCap Flare, where we are able to manipulate and work with the files. So yes, we pitched our case to some content management systems, and except for the price tag, which was considerably higher than MadCap Flare, there wasn't a lot of difference that would move us over to their side. So about 8-9 years ago, we decided to use MadCap Flare for this humongously big topic base and to run with it. And so coming out of Word, we migrated all our content into MadCap Flare. And we've been doing this ever since, and growing and even moving into agile, as we've done a couple of years ago. Mats, can you go to the next slide, please?
Here you go.
Thank you. Yes, there you go. And I'm just going to turn it over to Mats in a minute here. Just to let you know, these are the elements that make up the help package that we deliver 4 times a year in sync with our product and service releases. However, we build the entire thing nightly, and we're ready to do whatever our agile setup requires. So if we do bi-weekly review drops, that's what we accompany. If you want to have a nightly build to see today's changes, you got them tomorrow first thing in the morning. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mats, who is going to show you a little bit about the help package that we have in Flare.
Yes, thank you so much, Kai. We have decided to basically start with a picture of the cake, and then we are going to describe how we made it. So here's an image of the help system that we provide, and I will now jump to another computer where you can see our application in the background, and I already drilled down to where I have opened one of the 6,500 windows. This is basically a window for static data for a bond. It consists of a number of fields and functions and so on. The context sensitivity is that I can actually press help and get help for this window, or I could also press F1, which you probably know from other applications. So when I press F1 inside the bonds window, it will actually open the help topic for this window, and it will synchronize the TOC to the left so that I know exactly where I am in the SimCorp dimension portal. I'm under data, I'm under securities, I'm in the bonds area. And you can actually also see that from the breadcrumb trail that we have in the top. So this is just one topic that very, very briefly describes what the bonds window is and what you can do with it. In many topics, we have links to user manuals that describe how you can actually fill in the information, but we don't have that in all the windows. I can go back to the application, and then I can pick a field. I can select a field and press Shift F1, or I could also right click and say help. Then I get help for exactly that field. And we know that a lot of our experts actually use this information because they kind of know how to enter information and know how to use the system, but sometimes they get a little bit in doubt about a specific field. And as you can see here, the instrument type field, for example, has a lot of values. So basically, we have 74 different types of instruments that you can buy or sell and so on. To the left is where we have the table of contents, where we have the introduction, which is about the product. We have some release information. We have the SimCorp dimension portal again, which is basically a shortcut to the window help, which you can access if you are not in the window itself. Then we have lots and lots of user manuals for the different areas of the application. And under each of them, like data management connectivity, you see that here we have a user manual about the communication server. We have a user manual about the communication server gateway, and so on and so forth. We also in the bottom have some technical information like the system administrator's manual, something about Oracle, and so on and so forth. We have, of course, a search field, and I will just type in a search so that you can also see how that looks like. The term fund figures, or not the term fund figures, but the word fund and figures actually returned 903 results. So as you may know, I can put this string into quotation mark and limit the number of search results that we get. We have also implemented search filters so that people can actually choose if they want to search for the word or the terms inside user manuals, window help, release information, or technical information. So if I say I only want to look at fund figures from user manuals, and I have already filtered out a lot of results to make it easier for me to find the topic I'm looking for. I could even go down to how-to topics in user manuals, and that will filter the number of results even more.
And the cool thing about this is that it looks like faceted search and it acts like it, but it isn't quite. What we've done here is we use the concept tags to implement the search filters, and we faked the faceted search of 2 dimensions, with user manuals and then in how-to topics, simply by saying, well, if you want to have it in how-to topics, you actually need both tags. So all the how-to topics, they have the in-user manuals concept tag, but they also have the how-to topic concept tag. And that's how we sort of fake the 2 dimensions of the search filter here. It's a little extra work, but it actually goes a very long way. And we found that with the 200 user manuals that we have, just searching in user manuals often isn't enough. However, many of the users know whether they are looking for a concept to understand what are fund figures, or they need some instructions of how to use it. And of course, if you start with 903 hits in the beginning, it's nice to winnow them down to only 85, and that's a much more manageable search result.
Yeah, that's correct. And also a little note about the release information manuals of documents and our user manuals documents is that we actually provide both HTML and PDF versions of the content. The PDF version that you can open from here is basically exactly the same content. It's built from the same source. It uses the same TOC. So it's essentially the same content, but some users, they prefer to save the PDF on their computer and then read it on the train or the plane or at home or whatever. But the contents of the PDF and the HTML content is the same content.
in fact, we try to wean people off the PDFs because we know that the search of the online help is way superior. And it's often also a little more up to date because there's more stuff on the online help than goes into all of the PDFs combined. But so far, we didn't have any luck. We are toying with the idea of simply throwing them away and see what happens, but we didn't quite there yet.
That's correct. And also a very, very quick note about how we generate the PDFs, because we're not going to cover this in deep in this presentation, but we are actually using one of the newer features in MadCap Flare, that is the pre and post build events. So what happens when, for example, Kai, he is building one of his user manuals, he will simply build the HTML5 version, and then in the pre-build, it will start the building of the PDF, then it will import the PDF into the project, then it will build the HTML5 output, including the PDF, and then it will throw away the PDF again. So we are actually quite happy for the pre and post build feature inside the targets of MadCap Flare. But that's all I'm going to say about that right now. You can read more about it in MadCap Flare's internal help. So a little bit about our tools, because we have a lot of tools, and many of you are using the same tools from this list. We have source control. We're currently using Team Foundation Server from Microsoft. Integrates extremely well with MadCap Flare, with both check-in and check-out and so on. We want to move to Git, because the whole organization is moving to Git. We are just waiting for someone to help us fix a couple of related tools so that we can make the move. And our first test runs on other projects, not part of the master build setup, shows that MadCap Flare integrates also extremely well with Git. So it's kind of going to be a no-brainer to move to Git as soon as we have some other tools that we depend on to be fixed, so they support Git as well. For authoring and for building, we obviously use MadCap Flare, and we also use some MadCap Flare plugins that I'll describe a little bit later. And we use a self-developed tool, we call it the Help Builder or the Help Engine. That is the tool that will auto-generate 450,000+ context-sensitive help topics. It doesn't auto-generate the content that is developed by tech writers, but it does do some magic so that we don't have to maintain everything on 450,000 HTML files. And I'll go into more details a little bit later.
Yeah, and this is exactly the piece that lets us move from 50,000+ help topics, unique help topics, to the humongous number of files in the output for the different windows where we have the context-sensitive help, and also for the database help. So we use the help builder for that to take a single snippet, sort of say the the equity ID. That appears in many windows, and to generate that over and over. One could ask, why do we generate it over and over? The reason is that this gives us the freedom to branch off any context-sensitive individual help topic at any moment. But Mats is going to talk about that later. Sorry, Mats.
No problem. And then we are going to talk about automation. That includes a whole toolbox of different tools. For example, a task scheduler, the built-in task scheduler in Windows that executes batch files with a lot of commands that will execute various scripts to form some automation. I know that there are tons of tools out there that you can buy and set up to do the same thing. A lot of them are actually quite expensive, quite difficult to use, and batch files are very simple to use. So we still use them. And it's also because it is us tech writers who actually maintain the thing. And we are not exactly developers or techie nerds. So batch files and small scripts is something that we can actually handle. Now I'm going to show you how we first how we build a tri-pane output, and afterwards the site navigation output, because we're in a transition period. We have released tri-pane output HTML5 for many years, but we are moving to site navigation output because it's faster to load and it has other advantages. So first I'm going to go through the tri-pane build process that uses runtime merge. So what we have is we have TFS, where we have a huge Flare project that we call CSH, Context-Sensitive Help. It basically only consists of snippet files that are used in the context-sensitive help. Then we have a number of Flare projects. 7-8 years ago, we actually started out with 35 projects, I think, because we did have some performance issues if we had too many files in a project. But over the years, MadCap has little by little optimized the performance of MadCap Flare, the user interface, and they have optimized the MadBuild exit, the compiler, so that we can easily work with much bigger projects today. I think today we probably have around 10 MadCap Flare projects, so we have merged the 35 projects into about 10. But the build...
And actually, we could combine all those Flare projects 1 through 10 into a single one if our standard issue PCs had more RAM. That's the only thing that holds us back.
Correct. So what happens during the build of tri-pane output is that we have a master build project on the build server. And the first thing that happens is that we have this help builder or help engine that will auto-generate these 450,000 context-sensitive help topics and inject them into the master build project. What we also have is a number of Flare projects where the individual tech writers will be 1 up to 3 or 4 tech writers working on the same project, but many times a single writer will control a single project, and that single writer will produce a number of outputs for user manuals and release notes and so on, and push these outputs out to what we call the G drive. It's just a network share where we publish internally the outputs from the individual user manuals. Then what happens is that we use runtime merge to get all the pre-compiled output into the master build project. And I will show you what we mean by runtime merge in a few seconds. And once we have gathered all of this content in our master build project, it will build the output. And as you can see, this says it's a tri-pane output, and it looks slightly, just slightly different from site navigation, which of course is due to the skin and the style sheet as well. If we then jump to the site map build and where we use global project linking, again, we have TFS, we have all of our projects, we have a master build project for the site navigation build. We have the help builder that pushes the 450,000 context-sensitive help topics into the master build. But here there's a big difference because we do not pre-compile any output. Instead, we use global project linking from the master build project to go into the individual Flare projects and simply grab the content we want into the master. And we do that by using import files, which I'll show you in a few seconds. And again, then we have the build process and we build the output. The tri-pane output for these 450,000 topics plus the 150 plus user manuals, including the PDFs, takes about 2.5 hours. The site navigation build takes longer, but that's because it actually has to build more content from scratch. every time. But then again, the site nav. Sorry?
Still, for us writers, it's a huge benefit to use the global project linking because, as you've seen before with the TriPane, we always had to precompile and build our own outputs and put it on a network drive for the master build project to pick up. We don't even have to do that. So in the sense that site nav is our future because it's faster for the users and it's better to use in the cloud, it's also the future for us because we have less work for it and there's much more automation in it. So global project linking, if you're getting bogged down with having to build too many of your outputs individually only to be merged later on, then you might want to look at global project linking because this is quite a boon. And it's a yes, it takes more time overnight, but it takes way less time for us. And I don't have to remember, did I build that output? What about this manual? Is it up to date? I don't have to worry about it anymore. And my output is updated nightly. So I'm personally, just as a tech writer, I appreciate this immensely.
Yeah, and I'd like to just interject, perhaps, Mads, I think the GoToWebinar, the VoIP and the GoToWebinar is not being particularly kind today. So perhaps you could speak a little closer to the mic. There's a little bit of in and out. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, that's better. Yeah, maybe really focus in on the mic there may help out.
Okay, thank you for telling me.
Sure.
So I will now jump into the into our build server and show you the difference between the master build project that we use for TriPane output and the master build project that we use for site navigation. So let me find the correct server and just close down this one. This is for later. So here we are inside the master build project for our TriPane output. And in the TOCs pane, we just have a few table of contents where the master table of contents is the one we call HTML5. And I hope you can see that we have the first node, which is, I'll just click on this and press F4. So the first node in this TOC actually points to a precompiled output that we have on the G drive called introduction. And you point to the MC web help file in that output and select the enter external help system for runtime merging. This is actually how to implement runtime merging because I'm pulling in a precompiled output. For the other nodes, they point to other table of contents. So for example, the release information actually points to 3 different outputs on the G drive that we pull in during the build. If we go to the user manuals part, again, we see that we have all the different nodes where the individual nodes point to outputs on the G drive. And if it's too tiny, we can actually go into Notepad++ and see what it is that happens. So this is, you can say, the text-based version of the table of contents for user manual. And I just double click on MC Web Help because it will highlight MC Web Help everywhere. So you can see everywhere we have MC Web Help, we actually pull in precompiled content from the G drive. We do also have a few nodes where we pull in PDFs into the output, and that is where, well, we haven't actually converted the manual and put it into MadCap Flare. Could be because of resources or because the functionality has actually not changed, so it hasn't been critical yet. So the way to do global runtime merging is actually that you simply point to precompiled output, and when we generate the huge master output, all of these precompiled outputs are pulled in, imported into the master.
And this is, sorry, Matt, I was just thinking that this is a good example for talks inside of talks, because you can nest them any way you want. And if you go back to the user manuals thing, we see a lot of flags, which essentially means this is a book with nothing on it. That's, however, on purpose, because we only want the node. We don't want content on the node of data management connectivity. We only want the heading inside the master table of contents for the user manuals. And then everything that happens underneath are the individually generated user manuals. So it shows a couple of things at once. Talks inside of talks, but also how you can multi-purpose talks to give you a whole structure, even if it's larger and you might not have content on all of the nodes, but you use the top nodes just as navigation aids.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll now open the master build project for our site navigation output. In here, we notice that we have a lot more table of contents. And that's because all of these TOCs have been imported into the master so that we can gather all content inside one project and build everything. But again, we are using the same concept where we have a TOC that points to other TOCs. And for user manuals this time, we do not actually link to precompiled output. We link to other TOCs that we use in the output. Like I can click on the fund accounting TOC, and now I get into the TOC for the fund accounting manual. So it's like TOCs using other TOCs that use other TOCs. And I don't really, I mean, we only have 3 or 4 layers in total. I don't know if there's a limit, but I doubt it. And again, if we try to open this in Notepad++, because the font size is bigger, so maybe it's easier to see, you can see here how we have linked to all of these different TOC files from within the project. And one important thing about this setup is that we use global project linking. By global project linking, we mean that we have all of these import files. One import file will import content from another sub-project. Like the rept import file, this one will go to the rept project, and it will import a number of table of content files, and we have selected the auto include linked files. So when I import, so we see it here a little bit larger. So what I do is I import, for example, a TOC file called data extractor. This means from the project called rept, I import the data extractor TOC file, and I auto include all files related to that TOC. So what I get is all of the topics, all of the HTML files that are linked to this TOC files. If any of those topics use images or snippets or anything else, all of those files are also automatically imported by MadCap Flare at build time, which means that in this case, we do actually gather close to 500,000 HTML files and 50,000 plus snippets, and I don't even know how many images and relationship tables and so on and so forth that we gather inside one project, and then we run the build. So the global project linking is really, really strong. You can filter out files you do not want to include. You can include any file you want. You can even put conditions on and say, well, I do not want any files with these conditions on them. So this is a very, very strong tool to gather content from multiple sources to generate one huge master build project to generate the output.
One thing to remember, though, when you do that global project linking, if you use conditions inside one of those imported projects to control different variants, for example, we looked at the fund accounting manuals earlier on. There's a product variant called portfolio figures, which is essentially the same content, but with different condition set and different variable set. If you import that using global project linking, it doesn't necessarily use the same conditions on topic level. So you need to test that out, whether the build process actually respects the conditions on topic level. And what we've sometimes done is that we've pushed down the conditions from topic level to snippet level. And Paul Pearson has shown us that trick at a Mad World session years ago. So this is a sort of a bit of an advanced trick, but it works very, very well. And if you are doing global project linking and you do find that conditions on topic level are not respected the way you want them to, the answer would be to move them into the snippet condition level. And that way you ensure that all of the conditions are respected in all of the product variants, even though they're all based on the same topic base that you import.
Exactly. And we'll just give you a very, very quick look at the help builder, the infamous help builder, the one that generates the 450,000 files. You will actually not be able to download or copy or even buy this tool, because this will only work at SimCorp. But it's important for us to show you, if you have the resources, if you're creative, all the different opportunities you have to generate content and manipulate files, so that your scripts work so nicely together with MadCap Flare because of the open file format that MadCap Flare uses. So very, very quickly, the help builder will scan the application code. We simply copy the bin folder from our application to a folder, and then we scan it with the help builder. It will identify an application object, for example, a window, also called form. Then it will create a help topic, an HTML file for that object, and call it a specific number like form 81. Then we'll go into the CSH project and check if there is a snippet that matches form 81. And when it finds that, it'll grab the content from that snippet and inject the contents of the snippet into the HTML file. And it will repeat this process for all CSH topics created. And then it will inject all these topic files into the master build project. And as we said, it's 450,000 HTML files that are generated, and it takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And here's an example of an auto-generated form help topic or window help topic. So this is the bonds window help. The TOC, as you saw before, is constructed from multiple TOCs that are then merged together and used in the output. The title of the topic is actually auto-generated from reading the caption of the application object. This is great for us tech writers, because if the developers, decide to change the name of this window to John Doe tomorrow, we don't have to maintain the title of the topic. It will automatically be updated by the script. Then, of course, we have the content that was auto-merged from the snippet. So this is the content that the tech writer wrote. Then in the bottom, the help builder will also inject a list of links to related field help topics. So basically from the window help topic, you can expand this list, and then you can find the field where you want help and click on that, and then you'll get to the field help topic. So in that way, you don't have to select the field and press Shift F1. You can also go via the window help topic. And we do produce localized or translated content. And this is this presentation is not about translation. We simply don't have time to go through that part as well. But we want to mention that the build setup and the scripts that we have can be scaled to any number of languages. So here you see the same topic for English and German, but we could use exactly the same setup, exactly the same scripts, exactly the same everything to use any number of translated or localized help system. We would just have to scale the number of servers and MadCap build licenses that we have.
And the cool thing on this, sorry, Mats, can you just go back? Thank you. The cool thing is that, of course, there are some system texts like search. In the search window is Suche in German. And we don't even have to worry about that because that comes for free in the language packs inside MadCap Flare. So, you know, we only have to worry about the content, and everything else Flare does for us. So it's very cool to see that we don't have to worry about getting the Suche in there in that field, for example.
Correct. And now I'll go through some of the tools and scripts that we are also using. I'll try to do it quite fast because I also want to allow time for answering a few questions, but let us just go into some of the tools that we use, like, for example, the task scheduler. It is a tool that's part of Windows and where you can set up different tasks to be executed at whatever time. And we do it for scheduling our builds, but we also use it to allow tech writers to start jobs remotely. Not all the tech writers in SimCorp have access to the build servers, but they can execute some jobs from their own MadCap Flare via some built-in plugins, and then they can actually execute various jobs. Like if Kai, he has just finished a release node and he would like to rebuild the whole release node, he can press a button inside MadCap Flare on his computer, and then it will trigger a build on the build server, and the output will be pushed into the output on the web server and the G drive.
And the reason I even have, the reason I even have to do this is because I have such impatient product owners who cannot wait for the nightly build and see it first thing in the morning. No, they need it in an hour, and that's where this comes in. And I just click that button, have my new release node up in 10 minutes, and then it's like, okay, if you totally want to see it now, here you go.
Yeah, so essentially what happens, so this is the task scheduler on the English build server. We have a number of builds, including the MadCap builds and so on. I have highlighted the release notes 2004. That will be our next release in a month's time. So this is a scheduled task that is executed with some parameters. So that when Kai clicks the button on his computer, it will actually call a script on the G drive that will call a scheduled task on the build server that will execute a batch file, and so on and so forth. It may seem like you can say a detour to do certain things, but it works so quickly that neither Kai or the build server almost notices anything. And the next thing I would like to show you is one of the scripts that we use, because we use quite a number of PowerShell scripts. And the only reason PowerShell has been selected is that it is so easy to, let's say, borrow snippets from the internet. Stack Overflow will be your friend if you need to find code that can execute certain tasks for you. So here's an example of a PowerShell script that will basically go into every single window help topic and replace the H1 tag with H1 MadCap consent turn in window help, because we need help to update our help engine. We cannot do that ourselves because it's some C# code, and none of the tech writers can code C#. But what we can do is create a PowerShell script that will basically do the same thing, that it will inject the concept term into all of our form help topics so that we get the search filter on Windows as well. And this is actually the search and replace in source files and output files is something that we use a lot to both manipulate the files before they're built, but also to manipulate files after they are built. And I will now show you another tool that we are using. We are so lucky that we used to have a colleague called Matthias Sander, who is now an independent consultant, and he has created a tool for us, but it's actually for sale everywhere in the world, and it's called the Automator.
And by the way, I think we also had to buy this. He built it on our sort of suggestions, but he didn't give it to us for free.
That's correct. We did actually just purchase enough licenses for all the tech writers. But what is cool? 1 second. What is cool about the Automator is that you can basically make your own toolbar with all of the different tools that you need. So to speak, creating a dashboard for yourself inside MadCap Flare. Some of you may know the Kaizen plugin that comes with a lot of different tabs, but all of those tools are kind of static. You can't change them. Of course, you can ask Matthias to fix it or update it, but otherwise it's static and you can't remove any of the buttons. In the Automator, I can actually add or remove any button I want to give me all the tools that I need. One that I sometimes use is, for example, I'm in this topic and I want to see that in Notepad. I just click on the Notepad button and now I can see my topic in here. And I already discover some issues actually that I didn't see before. So I use this sometimes, not all the time, because I can also go in here in the text editor in MadCap Flare. So it all depends on how advanced tasks I'm going to carry out, but it's a nice little feature. I have easy access to certain drives, like my G drive. If I need to go and check something out, like we mentioned before, all the pre-compiled user manuals, they're all listed here. I have easy access to our internal documentation handbook on the wiki. And I said easy access, but it's a little bit slow right now. Here we go. So if I'm in doubt about something, like I want to look up the style guide and certain conventions that I have to follow, it's easier than opening the browser, finding the shortcut, and then go in here. I also have some buttons to, for example, build the release note. I can select what release note I want to build and say OK. And it will start. And just for the fun of it, we can go to the build server and we can actually see this dialog. Build the release note draft version for 2004. That is exactly the task that I just executed from my computer, from my virtual computer. Another feature that we have built into this is that I'm now in my RepRT project. I'm in the development branch. Now I want to check how does that compare to the same project in the 2001 branch, because we branch off every 3 months to have control over the different versions of the project and product. So I can actually go in here and see all the differences between my development version on the left and my 2001 version on the right. And as you can see, I actually have a couple of folders that are brand new in dev that do not exist in my 2001 version. I can also, if I have made changes to this file, I can actually merge that. So behind this button, there is a Team Foundation server script that will take the content from my development branch and merge that down to my 2001 branch. This one actually said there are no changes to merge, but if my development version and my 2001 version were different, then I could click this button and open Visual Studio and go in and see that I've actually patched content from dev, which is this one. We have German, English, French. And underneath that, we have all the different versions of our content. You can, of course, also, I could also go into my 2001 version of the same project and do the source control checking from there. But sometimes it's just easier to go into Visual Studio to do these merging and branching operations. And I'll send this over to you, Kai, to kind of round off this presentation.
That's right. So essentially, a lot of what we've shown you tonight is, or today, sorry, it's dark here, so that's what I'm saying tonight. But what we've shown you are more like examples. For example, the help builder, like Matt's mentioned, there's no point in you getting this, buying it, or even if we send it over for free, it wouldn't work. But what we were interested in showing you how the MadCap Flare open file format enables you to manipulate files before building or after building in so many ways that we are always surprised how limitless the possibilities are, and it just makes us much more efficient in our writing, but also in our build processes. We've shown you how to create content through scripts or even create TOCs through scripts. There is, and I don't think we've shown you this, but there's also ways to import content from CSV files, comma-separated value files, or Excel spreadsheets, and create dozens of topics from an Excel file, for example. And the possibility to manipulate the content and also the project files before and after the build has been such a benefit to us, and that's what makes it possible for us to create these vast numbers of topics on a nightly basis based on the tremendous power of Flare and Flare's build engine. And lastly, this is at least new to me, a fairly recent development, is that the Flare API extends the user interface, and those are the custom tools that Matt has just shown you, mainly the Automator, but also the Kaizen plugin. So with those combined, all built on Flare, we got a system that enables us to build this really large-scale output and more than compete with a database-based content management system, which has a much higher price tag and often has less flexibility for us to tinker with the build processes, for example. Some of the vendors that we keep checking out on trade fairs, yeah, they have great capabilities, but we find that it's really hard and sometimes also very expensive to make any changes to an existing setup. And that's not what we find here. If we can imagine it, there's usually a way we can fit it around. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we've been trying to show you tonight. Anything I forgot, Matt?
No, I don't think so. And I think it's almost 5 to something. It's 5 to 8 in the evening here in Denmark, and
great. Well, thank you both very much. I know we're rounding out the hour here with everyone. We've been getting some amazing questions coming in. I don't think we're going to get to all of them live, so please don't worry if we don't get to your question. We will be following up and sending a question and answer document to everybody just in case we don't get to your question live, but they're wonderful and keep them coming. I did want to give one quick shout out, if there should be another slide there, Mads, for Mad World before we get to some of these questions. Just reminder to everybody, we have a substantial discount expiring at the end of March for Mad World Austin, September 20th through the 23rd. Schedule's online, the speakers are online. Would encourage everybody to pop up to our site and check out what's coming and register if you haven't already. Okay. Yes. Was there something, Kai, you wanted to mention?
Yes. I just wanted to say, I briefly mentioned Paul Persson and something I picked up from him at a Mad World conference. Many of the ideas that we've implemented, we couldn't have dreamed up without the help of the Mad World community. So this is totally a good opportunity to come up with new ideas and make them happen.
Yes, it's a very, very helpful community. I want to get to a couple questions. One that was sort of a common theme from everybody is quite impressed with what you're able to produce. And everybody's wondering that it can't possibly be done with just the two of you writing this content. I don't know if you're able to share the size of your team at all with everybody. I think everybody's curious how you guys are able to produce all of this between the two of you, and perhaps it's not just the two of you.
No, it's not. It's not. We have a little over a dozen tech writers, and the way we make this happen is in our agile setup. We serve several teams, each one of us, but we get tremendous help from the agile teams. So if you've been working in an agile setup, of course, it's a team effort all around, and we act as writers / editors / knowledge gatherers. So it does take more than a dozen tech writers to pull this off.
Wonderful. And another interesting question that came up, are you aware about your viewership in the sense that is everybody accessing your information on a web browser, or are you finding you're getting more mobile users? Does your application or the deployment support that? Are you writing with responsiveness in mind?
Yeah,
we are. Oh, Mats, go ahead. Yes, by all means.
Yes, I mean, the responsive design is built in by default in the skins from MadCap. So yes, our content is responsive, and it works well on tablets and mobile phones. However, our organization is a little bit paranoid about our intellectual property. So the help is only available to clients who have bought the system. And also our clients are a bit paranoid. So we have clients who have users who do not have access to the internet. So what clients do is actually they have to download the whole help package and install it on their own, either a file share or a local web server. We are moving to the cloud. So we are moving the whole application to the cloud, and we have a cloud-based version of the help system. So as tech writers and communicators, we are hoping in the future that we only have cloud-based help and that all of our users everywhere in the world will access that one. It would also make it even easier for us to automate things even further.
Right. And are you all looking ahead in terms of how your readers search and find information? I thought an interesting question that came about was, are you thinking about using something like a chatbot, perhaps?
We haven't considered a chatbot, and I have to admit that I think we are too few tech writers to actually support it. I don't know if you noticed that in our help, in every single help topic, we have a give feedback link in the bottom. So you can send an email back to the tech writers and say, I'm missing information for this topic, or there is an error or something like that. But we haven't considered a chatbot.
Okay.
There is another reason why we haven't considered chatbots, and that is that in any kind of conversation that our customer service people keep having with customers or users, there's never the same answer twice. so much is setup dependent, implementation dependent, or simply a quirk of the market or a quirk of the asset management strategy. So whenever we've even toyed with frequently asked questions, which, if you think about it, could be sort of a precursor or a drafting stage for a chatbot, that fell down because everybody just about said that question is not frequently asked. So it's a little bit in the domain specificity of the market and of the knowledge, and also part of the reason why we have so freaking many topics is that it's never the same answer twice.
I would like to add that because we are moving to the cloud, and currently it's Azure Cloud, and there is actually a standard plugin for Elasticsearch in Azure Cloud. So we are also hoping that we can actually enable Elasticsearch on our MadCap Flare output to provide maybe a faster or better search experience, for example, so that users can search inside the PDFs that are not also provided as HTML files.
Right, that's a wonderful added benefit of the Elasticsearch capability, so that would be great. To search and retrieve those non-Flare topic files. Another interesting question that came about is, are you all thinking about micro-content? In addition to Elasticsearch, perhaps creating micro-content to aid in the search of all of your content?
Oh, we have. We just haven't been able to roll it out quite yet.
Oh, good. Fantastic. One other question, I think, before we wrap, just to be respectful of everybody's time. What was the part of the decision that led you to move from Team Foundation Server to Git?
Well, it's mostly because the whole organization is moving to Git. So all our application code is being moved to the Git, and lots of tools and services internally are moving to Git. But there is also an added benefit because when working with TFS, I don't know the technical details, but it appears that either MadCap Flare or TFS keeps communicating back and forth, which for some users like Kai, who is sitting some miles away from the TFS server, he can have some performance issues. When we move to Git, you are basically only working locally. There will be no ongoing communication between your Flare project and your computer and the source control server. So it will also give us a much better performance for the tech writers sitting in Kiev in Ukraine, in Germany, and in London or elsewhere in the world.
Right. Good. Okay. Well, I'm looking at the time, and again, we've have some other questions that we're not going to be able to get to live. I apologize, everybody. But as mentioned, we do want to send a follow-up. So some of these, I tried to choose the ones that I saw multiples of to try to get to those. But we'll certainly follow up with a question and answer document. So I want to thank you, Mads and Kai, so much for all of this great information. It was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Apologies, everybody, for our compromised voice over IP situation with GoToMeeting. Hopefully the recording will sound a little bit better. So thank you. Great information to the both of you. We appreciate your time. Everybody really is loving this great bit of info, and we'll be getting the recording out to everybody very shortly. So thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and we hope to see you on the next presentation.
And thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.